see trees of green, red.
Good evening and welcome to WMGM-TV Presents Pinky. My guest tonight is a very interesting gentleman coming to us from Wildwood, New Jersey. Been involved in the amusement industry for quite a while. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Randy Senna, an amusement game gentleman that just works on amusement games and other fun things. Tell me a little bit about who is Randy Senna.
Well, Randy Senna is really the kid who grew up on the boardwalk. I started in this early because my parents brought me to all the boardwalk resorts as a little kid, as a family unit. And they were the fondest memories of my life and the fondest times that I loved it so much that I wanted to be the amusement game operator. That was my goal in life, and I achieved it. When I was 18, I started in the amusement business with my own store in Kingsburg Amusement Park. I was running a fascination game there, which was one of my favorite games. And then we branched out into a Kentucky Derby race and an amusement arcade, which was now in the early 80s when we had the heyday with the Pac-Man, the Asteroids, and all those great games that people loved. Right after we were hit by several boardwalk fires in Kingsburg, I left New Jersey and I was hired and I worked for Walt Disney World in Florida. And I probably would have been there for the rest of my life because I loved it at Disney and they loved me too. I was actually hired to be in their arcade maintenance department because of my skills with the machines, because I'm also the machine engineer. But they placed me in a department which was in control of the arcade on Main Street in the Magic Kingdom, so I was in Main Street operations. The department actually controlled everything that went on in the Magic Kingdom from the time you enter Cinderella Castle all the way down Main Street and everything in between. We were basically coordinators of the entire entrance to the park. Parades and shows were a main attraction. But during my stint at Disney, which was several years, a store came available in Seaside Heights that I used to patronize as a kid, and it was called Lucky's Fascination. And the Fascination game, being a competition race game, it's more than an arcade game. It's an event where people play against each other rather than playing against the machine. The machine is a tool, so there's a family element to it when you're playing this game. And I had played as a kid so much at that store that I used to win incessantly. I grew a great skill in the game. My reward was they threw me out as a kid. I was banished from Fascination, and that scarred me. I was devastated by it. And that's why I really got into the business when I started in Kingsburg with Fascination. So here I am at Disney, and the owners in Seaside with the Fascination decided they wanted to sell out, and they wanted to move on to a different area. So they couldn't find somebody specialized to buy the business, so they contacted me, and I left Disney to come back and buy Lucky's Fascination in Seaside because I couldn't resist coming back to buy out the man who threw me out as a kid. So it was a triumphant return to my home state of New Jersey where I was born and raised. And I was very successful in Seaside for several years, operated there for probably, I would say, 8 to 10 years. And my method of operating the business was different. And the reason for it is I've never been a good businessman. I'm always still the little kid. I'm still the 8-year-old kid who was on the boardwalk. I'm the kid who enjoyed playing the games. So when I'm on the other side of the counter, my job is to give people that same experience. It's not about money to me. It never was. And that's an important thing because the amusement business, we're supposed to be providing the entertainment. What we sell, if we sell anything, we sell fun. People have gotten away from that in the amusement business, as with everything in the world, and everything becomes the bottom line of the dollar.
And how did you come to go to Wildwood?
I lost my lease in Seaside, and I couldn't find another location large enough for me to move to at the time. So my opportunities were limited. At the time, the Atlantic City was dominated with the casinos. There weren't too many boardwalk opportunities. Ocean City was restricted. You couldn't give prizes out on your games. So I came down to Wildwood, which we also frequented because we did all the boardwalks, including Atlantic City when we were kids. And I ended up opening a place on the boardwalk in Wildwood, and that would be probably the late 90s. And I did much more than Fascination because I'm a collector of the amusement equipment. I worked on the boardwalks growing up. I was a mechanic for the arcades. I would see the old games that I used to play as a kid in their back corners, and they would be telling me to pull parts out of them to fix other games. But to me, I was killing an old friend because that was a game that was such a special game to me. Well, next thing you know, the owner's saying instead of instead of fixing the game, take it home with you instead of getting paid this week. So I was happy as that. I was saving an old friend. So I did this over and over and over again to the point that I accumulated thousands and thousands of antique amusement devices that I still own today and have been preserving since I'm 11. I'm now 53.
What do you plan to do with them?
Well, initially I was trying to preserve my history, my fun times, but then I came to realize that we share a common history. My history on the boardwalk is not that different than everybody else who went to the boardwalk during those generations of decades that went by. And here I am holding all these treasures, and I wanted to create an amusements museum to bring back to life all the wonderful experiences that are gone. And this has been my quest for the last 35 years.
Where do you stand with it?
Well, I did it when I first went down to Wildwood. I did it on a pretty decent sized scale. And I unfortunately leased the building from a very, very bad landlord who had conditions with the building that were very, very bad, and he wouldn't do any repairs. The building got condemned after I set everything all up. We were only open for a couple months, and it was a huge, long lawsuit battle that went on for years. After that, I purchased the Woolworths building in downtown area of Wildwood, and I saw that as a redevelopment opportunity. Here's a downtown district that had died. All the stores were closed up, and I saw the Emporium, the 5 and 10 of Woolworths, looked to me like the Emporium on Main Street in Disney World. So I bought that building, and I envisioned creating the Amusements Museum there, and eventually expanding across the street to the old Murphy's building, which was a 5 and 10, maybe with a pedestrian bridge across the second floor, building the whole area of the block and turning that district into something now where people would want to go rather than just closed up stores. And I worked on that project for many years, and I've been stalled because
And it's still stalled.
It's still stalled. It's 15 years. 15 years I'm not allowed to open that store.
All right. We'll be right back with more for our good friend Randy Senna, that's telling you about the history that he has had in these machines. But basically, my grandchildren would come home and say, we were down in Wildwood and we played Fascination. Obviously, you had something that made these kids really enjoy themselves in the game. We'll find out about it in just a minute.